African Ascent International, your television program, which is increasingly attracting the attention of a substantial number of global viewers, for the first time, brings somebody that I have known since he was 5 years old. When I spent about 3 years at Brown University in the Department of Africana Studies as a professor of philosophy, a visiting professor of philosophy, his generous, ever brilliant father, Louis Gordon, who was just stepping out at the chair of the department, gave me that opportunity to become a Brown professor, along with his best friend and mentor, Paget Henry. During which time, because I was living in Melrose, Massachusetts, and I needed to spend a night in Providence, it is at the residence of Louis Gordon and his equally brilliant partner, wife, Jane Gordon, who gave me a fantastic bedroom on the 3rd floor. I remember those days very fondly, when Elijah was about 5 or 6 years old, extremely smart looking, with that curly hair, playing music, playing with his dad and his daughter and his sister and his lovely parents. His father, let it be known, is one of the leading Africana philosophers in the country, namely Louis Gordon, who taught at Brown University, chaired that department, and then accepted a position at the University of Connecticut, in which he and Professor Jane Gordon, Elijah's mother, are happy scholars. Additionally, Elijah's grandparents are the great Komarovs, who are the leading anthropologists still kicking and teaching, I believe, at Harvard University, in which I also happen to be a member of the summer faculty. So to bring Elijah is really a celebration of one of the surprises of life, that you see human beings at a particular age, they move across space and time, and then before you know it, while you're getting older, they begin to replace you. Such, I think, is the history of Elijah. He was very nice then, and I chatted with him a little bit, having not seen him for a few years. He's still very nice, like his parents. Welcome to African Ascent International, Elijah.
Thank you for having me.
Take it from there, Elijah. So tell me everything about you. Let's begin with your youth and with your life at Providence, and then your move to New York to become, from what I'm being told, as a promising dramatist, a drama major, a theater major, and a creator of great works of art. That's what I hear from the great ones.
On the pipeline. So I'm Elijah Gordon. I was born in Providence, Rhode Island. As said earlier, my parents are professors, and my grandparents are also professors. I have 2 older sisters, 1 older brother, and basically I grew up with a lot of like thinkers, like Teodros knows. Like when he mentioned Paget Henry, that's my godfather. Like I call him Uncle Paget. So growing up in Providence, being in that like field of like all those like academics, and especially like philosophy majors and political theorists and all that, there was always a bunch of open conversation growing up. And I feel that people are always able to say their thoughts and their theories of what's passed down, discussing systems, really inspired. I think all of my siblings, like Sue is also a playwright, Jenny loves TV and loves just like working with people in general. Matthew communicates with people on a daily basis. So I feel that simple, just lecturing format of how we grew up, what we grew up around, really inspired our like the way we move around in the world currently. And I feel like Providence is an interesting, like teachers, you've lived in Providence, well, you've visited Providence a lot. Providence is one of the weirdest cities on the planet Earth, with, you know, numerous different type of people, loving people, but there's just a difference to it that I can't really describe. So grew up there. Then when I was around 12, I moved to West Hartford, Connecticut, where West Hartford is really known for a really well-renowned public school system. And like numerous kids go to college. And I feel like when I was able to go there, when I went to high school, Sula was she was in the theater world, and she really got along with the theater teacher. And then obviously, because I'm a little sibling, I also had to get along with the theater teacher. So basically, we talked, and I was really enjoyed. I found a love for just writing scripts, and then basically while writing scripts, I was also doing stand up on the side. So I was like, oh, great. Like, I want to keep on doing this. And then I was trying to figure out like what's the best place to go and pursue this. And it was either LA, Chicago, or New York. I didn't want to be too far from my parents, but I didn't want to be too close. But I still felt LA was like way too far, and I feel like Chicago was way too far, and New York was perfect because it's only a 2-hour train ride to like my folks. I have a lot of family in New York, so it kind of totally worked out. And then luckily, I was able to get into a college in New York, and I was first at this one school. I didn't have the best time, so I transferred. Now I'm at the new school where I'm a playwright major. And basically, during this whole process from going back and forth in New York, I met a group of friends. We call ourselves the New World Collective, and we decided to write a lot of scripts and make films. And recently, we made a short film called Crime Pays, which is available on YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, and my Instagram. It's all available there. And yeah, that's basically what's been going on recently.
Incredible, Elijah. Let me be sarcastic. Don't take me too seriously.
I got you.
I'm a bit disappointed that you're not a philosopher or a political theorist, or at least an anthropologist.
Well, it was the second best thing. I became a stand-up comedian. So, yeah, it all worked out at the end, I guess.
All right. Now, let's talk about the New York scene. What do you like about New York? You're at an exciting part of New York. I love the New School. I remember giving a talk there 25 years ago on Antonio Gramsci, the founder of the Italian Communist Party, which was the subject of my very, very first book when I was quite young. And I remember that vividly. It was so exciting to be at the New School. You must be having fun there, Elijah. Let's talk about that.
It's great. So one thing I love about the New School is that like it's really like I was able to do like, how do I say this best? Like I was able to really be myself at that school. And even though they like will be like, okay, you have to take this and that, you can really put it in your own style in a way. And I feel like the best schools are the schools that keep you consistently busy while still having a vibrant community. And I feel like New School very much has that. And it really works for me. And I think no, it's just like, it was great. Like I was talking to a friend the other day, and it's really cool when you can complain about taking an acting class. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I know a bunch of like, I talk to my friends, they're like, oh man, I gotta take chemistry. I'm like, oh, I gotta remember my monologue. Like, it's just, so like being in that position is like I'm very fortunate for that. And I'm really happy to be in that. So that's always just super cool. And like, the thing is with the New School, because there's so many different schools, like you meet so many new kids every day. I'm dating someone who goes to New School. She's a jazz musician, jazz and contemporary music major. Her friends are a jazz contemporary music major. She has a friend who's also like a fashion design major. Like it's such a large group that it's like that you meet someone new every day and someone different. And it's really also what I love is that we're all in one building as well. So like each floor you see a new person. So it's just great. I love it. Being in New York always helps because there's so many just like opportunities. And like one thing I really love is that like I go to the New School, I'm right near my friends who also go to like NYU. So basically like our circle is still very much vibrant, but also if I occasionally want my space, I totally can. So yeah, that's all I have.
Now, Elijah, I'm so excited. I have so many questions to ask you. I almost have to bring you again so that I can get into all the facets of my curiosity. Let me ask this. How does it feel to be an interracial kid at the New School? How does that work? Do you have to negotiate your identity? Are you hypersensitive to it? Is it in the background? Or you simply don't think about it? Because for you, identity is merely an outfit. It's a garment that we don't necessarily buy. You happen to be, partly for lack of a better term, white, Caucasian, whatever the case may be, and partly dark skinned, but that in the end, these are just facets of the self. They are artificial, they are superficial, they are not stable, they are ever changing. As I said, they are nothing more than garments, outfits. And of course, you as an artist know that these identities are really, in the end, nothing more than the most superficial parts of the self. Or am I wrong?
Yeah.
Challenge me, Elijah.
Well, all right. So I feel like every Black person understands when they're the only Black person in the room. I think that's just a thing every single Black kid goes through when they go through private institutions. That's something to always keep in mind. And I think like it's interesting because all my professors who are POC, like they instantly know I'm POC. Like they're not very like they just know right away. And like I'm not someone like I probably was like back when I was in high school. I'll be totally honest, but like now I'm not really a person who's like announcing like what I am or who I am. Like I'm just trying to get through the day. You know what I mean? But simultaneously, like you always have to have that thought in mind because you got to understand when you're talking to someone that they have a totally different perspective than you do, and you know you got to see like certain differences. Like for me, like I never want to miss a class because my parents are paying for me to go to college. And for example, like I think about like my dad's family, like my dad was the first person in his family to go to college. So as like I have someone in class and there's like fifth generation of college kids, you know what I mean? So I feel like there's always that level of like, I'm not pondering about it like every single day, but there's that moment you got to think like, okay, I'm here. This is the context of my life. That's the context of somebody else's life. So I got to see how I communicate with them. I got to see what the balance is. And I got to understand that, you know, my family worked hard to be in the position where I am now, and I can't let them down. So that was that.
Now, Elijah, continuing my curiosity, and you're engaging me so beautifully. How does it feel to be conscious that you're the son of two famous scholars, famous grandparents, famous godfather? You're just surrounded by fame, Elijah. How many people that you know could claim these kinds of lineages in the way that you do? And how has this shaped you to emerge as the artist that you're now becoming? Let's break that down.
Well, I think if I was like a philosophy major or anthropology major or a political theorist, like that would be more, like I would encounter that more. But like I never see my parents or like my grandparents, like they're very well respected in their fields, but that's also within, you know, their fields and that work. And there's a large community of that. But like the community I'm in, like, you know, I'm a screenwriter, a playwright. Like they don't know my dad. So like they don't know my dad, they don't know my mom, they don't know my parents.
They don't know, Elijah.
They don't know at all. Like I'm not like my directing major is not gonna be like, wow, Lewis Gordon. Like, no, it doesn't have like within those worlds. Like if I was a philosophy major,
yes,
and I said my dad is Lewis Gordon, then they would probably know. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But like you're not gonna like a kid who's like watching like Phantom of the Opera and like stays up all night and is like going to college from Colorado. Like they don't know my family, which is like, so like I've never had an issue of like I was never like, oh my God, like no, like the kids growing up didn't know who my dad was. Like, you know what I mean? So like it was no, like teachers didn't know who he was. There was none of that. Like I admit there's like certain nice things where like, it's nice when you're like at a certain school, like it's nice when we visit a college, like my dad or my mom would know someone who was at the college. So like we could talk, they could call me around, they give me advice, you know what I mean? It's all great.
Yeah.
Like for example, like, and you know, there's like little, like there is like some ties, but like it's so like not, like it's so like if you're in the circle, you understand, but if you're outside the circle, you have no idea. Like for example, the provost of the new school is Jenny's, my sister's godmother.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. But like, no one's gonna look at me and be like, well, like, your family friends with Provost White? Like, no, it's just not gonna happen. So
Right.
it's never been like, oh, like I gotta hide him. They're like, no, I just say my parents are professors, and they're like, cool. And then they just go around with their day. So,
That's right.
yeah, it's
So,
never.
so Elijah, you're your own man, Elijah.
I know, I very much am.
Right. You
It's
might have inherited characteristics from the background, but in the end, philosophically speaking, the great Kant would say, you're an autonomous individual. You're a self-determining individual, perhaps aware almost as an existential necessity that you think about where he came from. But in the end, Elijah is who Elijah is fashioning himself to be. So let's talk about yourself fashioning as an artist.
okay. I feel like so like my parents are like it's so interesting because like I talked to my friend the other day and I was like because he's very much like his parents and he was like I'm nothing like my parents and I'm like that's not true because like every kid is just a product of like who their parents are, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I'm very much like I'm a lot like my mom and my dad. I'll just easily admit that. And you know, I feel like I've always appreciated how they've always had such a large community and how they've done things. And
Yeah.
like, essentially, like, you know, like my parents have a great skill of they could do something easily on their own, but they could also easily do something with a group.
Yeah.
So I feel like even now, like when I'm writing stories, like I can like write a script by myself. Like I could, not to sound like selfish or like pretentious, I can write a script by myself pretty easily. I just can't. But I also love co-writing with scripts with my friends as well. Like I would usually help my roommate with sketches if he needs me, or I'm actually helping my friend co-write a short film as we speak. So it's like I really enjoy just like working with people and doing my own thing because maybe because I grew up watching a lot of basketball, that like I really love the idea of like teamwork and people building together to get the final product. And simultaneously you have like leaders and other things like that. But I also saw that a lot with my parents. So I feel like in general, the way I am is like, I want to, and similar to my parents, I want to be stubbornly myself, but I also want my whole group around me. And I feel like that really kind of describes it in a way because yeah, like for example, like with this film, the film I just did, I was thinking of it, I'm like, oh my god, like how am I gonna like film this, like who should choose who should choose that, and I realized like there's a good position in life where you got to be like, okay, I'm great at this but I'm not good at this, so let me get my friend who's amazing at the other thing that I'm only at to make the best of something. So I feel like that's truly how I kind of move around.
Okay, and now Elijah, among many things that is quite obvious to me that you could have chosen to be, you chose to be first a musician, have attended to some pieces that you did with your father on the piano and the drum, and you, I believe, on the guitar. And when you were 5 years old, in that beautiful living room in Providence, you used to play with your father. Remember the lovely living room? Which you guys converted into a studio. I remember this distinctly. Yeah. So there is that musicality in you. And then now there is the scriptwriter in you. And of course, both of them are part and parcel of the aesthetic realm, broadly understood. But to localize it, we'll call it the artistic temperament, the artistic practice. What drew you away from music? Not that you've given it your back, you haven't, I'm sure you do it, but specifically to script writing. What are you trying to tell the world, if any, by becoming a brilliant script writer?
So I feel like when it comes, thank you for the kind words. I feel like I also, when it comes to like music, I still love music. I still listen to music. Like even when I write my like stories, like there's still a very like musical like aspect to it. Like we have a whole song in the background of our recent film. So I really do love that. But like I'm the type of person where if I'm doing something, I want to give it completely 100%. So when you do like 40 things at the same time, you're not going to have the best. You could do the 40 things, but your 40 things won't be the best as it possibly could be. As if you do like one thing at a time. And with music, I'm like, if I'm doing music, I'm like, I'm only focused on music for the next 6 months. Just because I don't want an excuse being like, oh, like this wasn't best because of this and this. If that's the case, don't do it at all. That's what I honestly feel. So, and what really mainly gravitated me towards script writing, honestly, it was really simple. So, when I was 15, I started doing stand up. And yeah, I found a love of playwriting, but also my mom was very much like, hey, like if you're doing stand up, you need another job. You know what I mean? Which is great advice because you do. So I kind of got in love with that. And then I realized like the amount, like, I think the degree when I realized when I was younger, and now it's like the love has been so like developed that like I kind of forget where it really started from. But basically, when I was in high school, I wasn't really grooving with all the college ideas I had. You know what I mean? Mainly because like I went to a high school where it was very much like it was kind of like formulaic. Like it was kind of like an equation. You do this, and that's your major. And you know it works for numerous of kids, and it's a system that works. But like I didn't want to be a math major. I don't want to be like a business major. I didn't want to be any of that. And like I hated taking like math and science and all those classes. Like the only classes I really loved taking were history, occasionally English, and then all like my extracurricular activities. The rest I was like, yeah, no. So, but when I found out, and then also another thing was like when you go to college for music, you mainly should be a jazz musician. And I didn't really want to play jazz in college. Like that's just not really like my forte. And I really wanted to be kind of like control of what I was able to do. And the thing is when you play jazz, yeah, you can make original music, but simultaneously you're just reading like sheet music. So once I found out there was a bunch of script writing, you know, majors and universities available to me, specifically in New York, I was like, that's where I want to go. So that's kind of where it really began because I was like, oh, I can actually like become a major, meet people, write all that, and I can make my own stories or like guide it out rather than playing music where it's just like I'm doing this and this and that. And also, I just know me, like if I'm playing music at a school, I'd be like, screw this, I don't want to do this anymore. As like when I'm at playwriting at a school, I could be like, oh, I'm meeting other playwrights, now I have this professor and I can learn to take this class, this class, and this class. So I feel like it was just mainly like me wanting to go to college really, you know, initiated the love of the craft.
Incredible, Elijah. And now you've really excited my curiosity. I want to know more about script writing. Of course, the script writer is also a writer in the conventional sense. So let's talk about script writing as a practice. It must be difficult. You must be investing an X number of hours every day, for example. You must be writing a page or two every day. And then when you get a chance, you return to it at the end of the night to produce the second draft, the third draft. And in your case, it has to be harmonized with designs, with purpose and mission and so on. It's not easy. So just give me a crash course on the life of a scriptwriter. What do scriptwriters do? I happen to be a writer myself, a novelist, and so on. But I know nothing about script writing, Elijah, but I want to know.
So, I mean, there's always one of my mentors always said this. Actors are always the best dressed. Directors are always, you know, like already in gear, ready, like tightly dressed. And script writers already have a coffee stain on their shit. So I feel like a bunch of that is when it comes to script writing, you have a whole world of people who are very much like passionate about making their own story and thriving in their own like world. And we work so much that we do not care what's around us in a way. So for example, we don't care if there's a copy stain or if we miss something, like we're very much in tune with the work. And I feel like one thing that's so great about like script writing is that like, I mean, every time you see a show or a sketch, like that really just comes from the script. That comes from someone writing their own worlds, making their own rules. So I think it's just knowing like what works and what flows. And luckily, like I was lucky to be in a position where like I have really great teachers who really taught me like the whole structure of it. And even though you had an idea when you were younger, you have to find the rest of it. But like basically when it comes to every story and every script, you need a conflict, you need a goal, and you also need the emotional goal. And for example, Teodros, what's your favorite TV show?
My favorite TV show?
Yeah. What's one of your favorite like TV shows that you've watched recently?
Incredible. You put me on the spot. What is my favorite TV show? Elijah, I'm going to fail, I think. I can't answer this question. It has been quite a while since I've watched any TV show. But when I was watching TV show, Star Trek. was my favorite one.
Star
I
Trek.
love Spark, his logical mind.
So
yes.
yeah. So when it comes to Star Trek, you obviously have the goal, dead space. Obviously, people don't want to do that. And then simultaneously, they have that emotion at the end that fulfills the character meaning. You know what I mean? There's always that little goal. So there's always like with that in every single story structure. Like even like, have y'all ever watched Seinfeld?
Yes. In fact, I should have mentioned that to you. I love that comedian, is champion. I love him. Yes.
Exactly. Love Seinfeld. Love the show. And in every single episode, they have a goal, and then they have their like conflict, and then they get their emotion at the end. So like one of my favorite episodes is The Contest, which basically they make a bet to be the master, basically essentially not to like, please themselves. So basically they make a bet, and whoever wins gets X amount of money. So they want to win the bet. The thing is they can't get loose, which is the conflict, and the emotional goal at the end is that they are able, like what they realize at the end is that it's fine to have that pleasure. You know what I mean? Life is able to go on. You shouldn't be shamed about it. It goes through. So every story kind of has that like simple like beat structure, and then you got a subplot which has the same things. So all in all, I feel like just being a screenwriter is like you think a lot about what makes a story work, what makes it entertaining. And I feel like the common thing is you want to make a story that you like, but you also have to think about what other people like and what other people say. So like one of my friends, he's great. He just started, and he's like better than I was when I started writing. I can easily say that. And I remember we were writing one day, and like he was like, girl and girl shake hands. And I was like, hey man, I have never seen like women shake hands in their free time. Usually like if you're our age, you're gonna either like wave or have a hug. You know what I mean? Like that's just not how that works.
That's right.
Yeah, and then one time, and like he's great, like he's a champ. Like he doesn't mind that I'm saying all this. Like he's the best. And I remember one time, like, basically he has a character, and he goes by a nickname. And so the one person asked him like, oh, can I ask you a bit of a personal question? And I was like, well, that's not a personal question to ask someone what's their name. You know what I mean? Just say ask a question. So it's very similar when it comes to like script writing and like just like simple like novel writing and article writing. You need to have the logistical aspect of it that is very similar of being like obviously like you write something where you're like, oh, I just said that, I gotta delete it, or what's the point of that? That's the word that I'm just being repetitive. So like it's the same aspect. The only difference is it's like we're just quoting people the whole time, and that's mainly it. It's just people are saying things that we're controlling instead of like yada 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 yada. You know what I mean? And like I feel like I wouldn't know per se like for example, like if you read a book and there's so many quotes, you're like, I should just watch a movie. Or like when I like watch like a movie and there's just nonsense narration of people telling you something, I'm like, I'd rather just read the story. Like I'd rather just read like an article of it. So I feel like they're very similar, but there are aspects where it's like, okay, this is dialogue and this is just written on a page. And you can somewhat coexist, but like majority of the time they should stay in their own lanes. So I feel like that's kind of the differences.
Incredible. Elijah, at the expense of embarrassing you, what I love about what you're doing is the excitement, the passion for your practice. I love that, Elijah. Now, given that passion, Elijah, how do you characterize yourself as a writer? Are you the disciplined type who works at a particular day, during the day or late at night, or are you the spontaneous type who writes only when you have to, when you're stimulated by something, when you think there is something that you have to record, that you have to put it down in the form of literature, or are you the type who wakes up every day with an agenda? And you say, I'm going to write the first draft of this story, of this script today at this particular time.
Yeah.
I just want to learn from you so that I can become a writer like you.
That's totally fair. No, I'm playing. I think when it comes to that stuff, so before I write a single script, I outline the whole story first, like on my notebook. So so if it comes to actual script writing, like I could be spontaneous because I could be like, okay, well, it's mainly like whenever I have a free moment. So if I'm like, oh, it's 3 a.m. and I'm going to be up for the next 4 hours, let me write the script. You know what I mean? Or like when even if it's like 9 a.m. to like 11, if I have any free time, then I'll write it. But before I write, I do have an outline right next to me because like I think it's really important to know where a story is going. And I really just like having just like planning it out, being like, okay, this is that beat, this is that beat, this is that moment, that is that moment, yada 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 yada. And then I'm able to translate it onto the, script, and then I'm able to be like, okay, this person will say this person will say that. So when it comes to like writing the script, I would say I write scripts on average, like by average, like personally writing the script 4 to 5 days out of the week.
Wow.
But when it comes to outlining, probably every single day. Just have an idea. Yeah, just have an idea how I want to do it, how I do that. And, some days you work on the outline for like 2 hours or 4 hours. Other days you only work on it for 15 minutes. So at the end of the day, it's just kind of like the mix, but it's very much like I really like having my ideas in a template because I also like thinking like, oh, this was good. This was let's try to make the best out of each. You know what I mean?
Incredible, Elijah. So in your case, Elijah, correct me if I'm wrong. If you're like me, I tend to think, perhaps I'm foolish, that anything that I listen to, Elijah, in the trains, in the buses, or something that I observe when I'm walking, I write it down. I fictionalize it. That becomes the writing for that day. I produce 1 page a day. I've been doing this now for 30 years because I'm so foolish that I think anything that I listen to, anything that I observe has to be committed to writing. I don't think in terms of the quality of what I'm writing at that stage. I simply am grateful to the transcendent that I have observed something. I have listened to something, Elijah, and then I take the time to write it down so that the brain could record it. My hands would put it in the form of script. That's the kind of writer that I am. Are you like me, Elijah? New York must be the most exciting place, I think, for this kind of discipline because it's huge. People are always walking on the streets, doing things. The homeless, the unemployed, the busy Wall Street moguls, and so on. You can't help but be stimulated by the energy. And then you look at a story, right, Elijah? Is that how it works for you?
Yeah, basically, it's so easy. So it's so funny because it's like when I write like a New York story, it has to take place in New York. You know what I mean? Like, because so much like about like writing in general is about the setting, and it's interesting because like I think it's like I don't know what it is. I feel like once you start writing, there's always that moment where you have a simple conversation and you realize, oh, that's actually crazier than I thought it was. Let me write it down. You know what I mean? And
exactly, Elijah.
So like, and it's so interesting because it's like I think my parents, I don't think they like intentionally did this, but it was like, it's like a really useful thing when it came to the writing world. Like I grew up with so many different type of like communities growing up. Like you remember like my old Providence neighborhood.
Of course.
Very working class Caribbean neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And then we moved to suburbs and it was like, I think like average upper, like middle, upper middle class, you know what I mean? Like neighborhoods and all that.
Yes.
And even
I remember both places. Yes.
Yeah, both places. So vastly different. So I think like I learned how just like people are in those systems, and that really like helped me out and learning certain things, and that really like inspired me. And to tell like the difference between both has really helped like my writing in general, because like when you meet a lot of people at college, they only grew up in like one world their whole life. They're not used to like both, So I feel like I was lucky to be in that situation. But when it comes to just like the gravity of New York and being inspired by scripts, like it's a city with a minimum of 8 million people. Like it's endless. And like you see someone, and like usually like I just listen to music on the subway, but simultaneously you have those own like subway moments, and then you walk on the street, something. So I think like when it comes to just simple inspiration, like I always say like I need one day by myself to fully recharge. So like I can just like take a break and then my work can be like top notch.
Yes.
But so like I think like I always go out, I do my things. I walk like 3 to 4 miles a day because I just love, one, I just enjoy walking, and two, I get to see so much and you get to be inspired.
Exactly. Beautiful.
So I think like in general, like that's kind of the mainstay of like what I do and what's happening and what goes around. So I think when it comes to like inspiration, it gets you, it's not, but simultaneously, it's weird because you got to find the middle because you can't look too hard for it, but you can't not look for it. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely,
you
like
gotta
I
find,
understand you. Yeah,
yeah, you gotta find that middle area. So I think it's like, be aware of your surroundings, think about it, and really like digest the conversation. Like I remember, like I was talking to a friend one time,
yeah,
and it's because I think people don't understand, like when you have a conversation with people, how crazy the conversation can actually be. Like I remember I was talking to one
exactly.
friend. I remember I was talking to one friend, and he was like, he was in like this conflict with this girl, and then she goes like, you know, I'm like, was it she? I remember it was her. It was like he was talking to his friend who was girl. There's like this guy around, and I just remember the girl just goes to him and she goes, you know, you have the potential to be a good person. And I was like, what? She said that? He was like,
Yes,
yeah, so? I was like, dude, that's messed up. Write it down. And like it became like a whole, you know what I mean? So like I think it's
incredible.
a matter of like realizing of like the craziness of what somebody said if you're making a comedy or you're making another story. I think it's just like really understanding like the words and like the breakdown and like the effects and all
It's
that and what they truly
unbelievable,
mean.
Elijah.
So it's kind of I just very much just like I don't know like even like when I grew up watching like TV, I was very much immersed in the world, and I was like, okay, that's what the character wants, that's what the character needs, and I kind of just like break it down and jump. So I guess I kind of did that with people as well. So yeah,
It's incredible, Elijah. We're so similar. I'm becoming so bashful. For example, let me tell you this, which you might appreciate. About 3 years ago, I went to a liquor store in Malden. And then I saw this woman, super dark, extremely beautiful. And I remember having seen her, check this out, about 20 years ago. I don't think she even remembered me. I must not have left any impression. I wasn't hurt by that. Whereas I remembered her. And I remember complimenting her 20 years ago. I complimented her again 20 years later, Elijah. I told her, you are so beautiful. The darkness, just extraordinary. She looked at me. She knew I wasn't hitting on her. It was an aesthetic proposition. She said, that's the only thing that the world hates about me. I took that line, Elijah, and now it has become the subject matter of a third novel that I'm writing. The first was called Cambridge Days. The second, a resurrection of a character from Cambridge Days. And I resurrected him. I made him blind. There was no eyes, so on and so forth. Now, the third novel to finish the trilogy is based on these lines. That is the only thing that the world hates about me. I took that line, Elijah. Now I'm developing it. I'm entering her head to trace her history.
hey, it's crazy what inspiration can go to.
Exactly. You never know, as you said, when words visit with you. If you're an artist, take this visitation seriously and produce literature out of them. I think I and you share this passion. Now, I could talk to you forever, Elijah. We have about 20 minutes left. So why don't we talk a little bit about who are your model scriptwriters, the people that you would like to be like when you grow up, if any? Of course, you can say none because you're your own man. You have your own poetics.
Yeah, I think like, I think to be totally cliche and kind of corny, I think now I kind of like I think there's people who I was very much inspired by when I was younger, and I think I've kept that to heart. You know what I mean? Since I was like at a younger age, and I kept that in mind. But like now, it's just kind of like, well, there's people that will always inspire me by doing things, right? But I think simultaneously, I want to still do like my own thing as a person. But like I always love like for example, like I think like my family has really like influenced me in general. Like I think like again, like I say, like my parents built communities. How like strong both my parents are, how strong my siblings are. I think like that. I always think about that at the end of the day. And then like I think about like other aspects of like other people. Like I think like when it comes to like I always like think about like Malcolm X and how like in my autobiography how it's like you're not gonna tell it, you're not gonna stop it. You know what I mean? Like
Of course.
you're not gonna stop that man. And I feel like I just want to be like kind of like that bulldozer of like you're not gonna stop me. I feel like when it comes to like I always joke around that like my personal hero. Well, it's actually not a joke. It's like I'm for real. Like my personal hero growing up, and a lot of people were surprised by this, is LeBron James. And I feel like
I see.
Yeah. Like LeBron James is my person. I have like 3 of his jerseys. Like I love LeBron, right? I just do. And something I always love about LeBron is that he always wants to bring everyone around, but he understands like, okay, it's my time. Sometimes I gotta do it for me. You know what I mean? And sometimes he has the way up. But also what he does is like LeBron always, I think, breaks the boundary of like, let's try to find something new to do. Like, exactly. I mean, he just opened a school. Like, so I feel like that's totally influential. And then I think like, and then also like I always loved like, and what I love with like all those people, especially like what I saw like with like my folks, is that like how like community can last for a long time. Like my dad, and it's crazy. Like my dad, you know my dad for like what, 20 years now? 15
20 years now. I love your dad.
Yeah.
And also your mom. I love
my mom. Yeah, and also like, you know, like, and my mom is like been working with people or like has the same like crew of people she knows since she's like 19, like for 25 years. So like in general, I think it's always good to just have that community and like you're able to like love each other, work with each other, welcome each other, but also bring the best out of each other. And I feel like that's kind of how I am when it comes to work and my coworkers. And when it comes to simple like scriptwriting matters, who I'm really inspired by. Like I think, speaking of sci-fi, I think Larry David is one of the best comedy writers or the best comedy writer of all time because he's always able to like have that normal interaction and just make it as crazy as possible. And I also love, there's a bunch of writers I love where it's like, you don't want to steal their style, but it's like, okay, they have this idea, but they still make it themselves. Like I love like Atlanta, that show Atlanta with Donald Glover or Bill Hader and Alec Burke's show Barry. I just think like what I get inspired by each day is like, what I'm always reminded is be yourself, but also like there is certain guidelines these people did, which is good for everybody to know. Like think outside the box, work with your people, be yourself, and don't be afraid to try something new. And if you're not the best at something, it's totally fine. People who love you will help you out. And if they're better than you, that's amazing. That will only make you better.
Incredible, Elijah. Are you aware that we've been talking about food for 15 minutes, Elijah? And I feel as if I've been talking to you for about 5 minutes. Unbelievable. We hit it off. I'm so grateful. I'm so lucky. Now, we have about 15, 20 minutes left. I would like you to spend this time on your scripts. Just, if you want, read us from your scripts. I think that would be the best way of finishing the interview. Read something to us.
Okay, so
your favorite work, what you're working on right now that you're in love with. It's important that you fall in love with your work. I strongly believe in that. You don't have to wait for others to praise it. As long as you praise it with internal standards of excellence, it's good enough.
Okay, so I do have projects on the way, so I don't want to spoil anything. So I'll read a part of a script that, you know, that was recently released. Again, you know, with the short film I did make.
Yeah.
And so practically, give some context. Well, first, let me just say this again. I said it earlier, but Crime Pays is available on the View World Youth Collective on YouTube. It's also available on my Instagram, Saw the Jamaican, on the Linktree site, and you can watch it on IGTV. It's available anywhere. Please watch it if you can. And basically, to sum up the story quickly, it follows the life of a drug dealer in New York City named Will, who needs to make a certain amount of money for his cousin. If he fails to do this, his cousin will be evicted. He has to pay his cousin because he owes his cousin a favor. So currently at this scene, he's made a certain amount of money, and he wants to make this one final deal so he will able to get the perfect amount of funds, but you'll see what happens. So I'm gonna start this off now. So basically, they're in the staircase outside of Lucas's apartment at night. Will knocks on Lucas's door. He's on the phone with Eva. Will, 320, 340. All right, I'm 60 away. I'll be home soon. Yeah, I only have like an eighth and 2 dubs left. All right, see you soon. Love you. Hangs up, knocks again. Lucas opens the door. He counts the money. Lucas, what's up, man? Come in. Will enters. Interior Lucas' apartment at night. They both sit down on the couch while talking. Will gets his backpack and grabs a paper bag. Lucas, man, how long has it been? Sophomore year? Will, I guess so. By the way, 60 for an eighth. Lucas, no problem, but man, I still can't believe you're dealing. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really want to, but it's hard to get a job on probation. So, Lucas, geez, I know. Will, but what you been up to, man? Lucas, nothing really, just got a new job, though. Will, oh, word, what's your new job? Lucas, check this out, man. I'm a cop. Will is shocked, but still has the paper bag in his hand. Lucas, man, don't trip. I'm not gonna rat on you. Well, is that your job? Lucas, I mean, yeah, but you're my boy. Will is clearly lost. Well, so can I get my $60? Or Lucas, well, if I bought this, then it would be, illegal. But I think you can help a friend out. Lucas shows Will his badge and gun. Will gives him the bat. Will gives him the bag. Lucas, thank you, and don't worry about it. If they ever catch me, I'll say I got it from Benny. He needs to be out there anyway. Will, sure. Lucas, no problem, bro. Lucas attempts to high five Will like they're really cool, but they are very clearly not. Will, out of curiosity, how many people do you rob? Lucas, well, only when I ask for weed. Well, how often do you ask? Lucas, not too often, twice a week maybe. Also, I need to sell some on the side. Will, really? Lucas, what? Man, as a cop, you know what I get paid for? And how, man, you know more than anybody. Crime pays. Crime pays plays again, and we see them make one last deal, and Will walks home. And that's the little segment I'll share.
Incredible. It's brilliant. Well, this is what I'm going to say, Elijah. It is a pleasure. I learned quite a bit from you. It's very obvious that you're on your way to do something great. I want you to know that African Ascent International is your home. When there is a new script that you've written and you want to talk about it and share it with the world, you have my email. You can come anytime you want to African Ascent International, and we'll chat, we'll converse, as we did today. This has been your host, Teodros Kiros, for African Ascent International, interviewing Elijah Gordon, an emerging scriptwriter. The signs of potential greatness are written all over him. Viewers make an effort to visit his work, which is available in YouTube, and I'll make this particular first kickoff interview with Elijah Gordon in a day or two. This has been your host again, Theodros Kiros, for African Ascent International. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
I really had fun.